December 1st, 1944. The Ardennes forest. A bitter wind slices through the skeletal trees, carrying the scent of damp earth and smoke from distant skirmishes. Snow dusts the ground in uneven patches, crunching under the boots of patrolling soldiers. You can almost feel the tension pressing down on the Third Army's headquarters in northern France, where maps of the Ardennes are sprawled across wooden tables, pins and markers scattered like chess pieces in mid-game. General George S. Patton leans over the table, eyes scanning every reported German movement with a mix of calculation and instinct. His jaw tightens. Something doesn't sit right. Reports of unusually large German troop convoys moving toward the Ardennes keep arriving, trucks packed with infantry, columns of tanks shifting under the cover of dense forests, radio silence that screams secrecy. Meanwhile in Brussels, General Dwight D. Eisenhower paces his office. Staff officers buzz with memos discussing whether the Third Army should redirect fuel and armor to reinforce other fronts. Eisenhower hesitates, weighing the logistics, the politics, the endless chain of what-ifs. Patton's warnings arrive daily. The Ardennes is brewing with an enemy offensive that could shatter the Allied front lines. Patton doesn't wait for permission. He orders his staff to prepare contingency plans. Tanks are moved into reserve positions, artillery units rehearse winter maneuvers, and infantry patrols stretch their eyes over every ridge and hollow. Soldiers in the cold wind drill relentlessly. You can almost hear the snap of frostbitten wood as riflemen shoulder their weapons, eyes squinting at the fog-shrouded horizon. But even as the Third Army readies itself, doubt lingers in the corridors of command. Could Patton be overreacting? Was this just another phantom threat born from paranoia? Patton doesn't speak of fear or uncertainty. His presence alone radiates a certainty that's contagious to those around him. He knows what others refuse to see. Germany is planning something catastrophic. And then on a silent night in early December, a patrol reports it. The signs are undeniable. The Germans are moving. Every patrol, every intercepted message, every abandoned roadblock points to the Ardennes. A storm is coming. Patton leans over his maps, tracing the likely routes. His mind is already 3 moves ahead of Eisenhower's deliberations. He orders the Third Army into positions that will allow for a lightning strike once the offensive begins. Little does he know, the Germans themselves are counting on hesitation. They believe the Allies are complacent, that their blitz into the Ardennes will catch the Americans by surprise. But Patton has already taken the first step, and the stage is set for a confrontation that will shock the world. The wind howls outside, and for the first time a few staff officers exchange nervous glances. Patton's confidence feels almost reckless. But is it? Or is he the only man who truly sees what's coming? December 10, 1944. SHAEF headquarters, Luxembourg. The room is thick with smoke from countless cigars, a faint hum of telegraphs and ringing phones filling the air. Staff officers hover around Eisenhower's desk, each carrying reports that outline troop dispositions, fuel shortages, and the endless bureaucratic tangle of Allied logistics. Eisenhower leans back, rubbing his temples. Patton's messages are stacked neatly on one side, urgent, precise, and increasingly insistent. He tells of German armored divisions massing near the Ardennes, of roads silently cleared for invasion, of enemy confidence that the Allies will falter. Yet Eisenhower hesitates. Every decision feels like a gamble. Pulling resources from the south could leave another flank exposed. Committing prematurely could risk a wider catastrophe. Meanwhile, across the frozen plains of Luxembourg, Patton moves with relentless purpose. His staff coordinate fuel convoys, recalibrate artillery for winter ranges, and deploy reconnaissance planes to map every ridge and river bend. Soldiers trudge through knee-deep snow, their breaths puffing clouds into the air, each step measured, each drill precise. Patton rides alongside them in his jeep, his leather gloves tight, eyes scanning for the invisible enemy, his mind already calculating the counterstrike that could save the entire front. You can almost feel the tension split between these two epicenters of command, one frozen by caution, the other burning with foresight. Patton's orders are clear: be ready. Eisenhower's indecision lingers, a shadow that threatens to slow the Third Army's potential. In those critical hours, every soldier, every tank, every artillery piece becomes a chess piece, waiting for the first move that could decide the winter's fate. Then reports arrive that change the calculus entirely. Intercepted German radio chatter, trucks spotted on hidden forest roads, new units reinforcing positions previously thought secure. The Ardennes is not a distant threat anymore. It's imminent. Patton's suspicions are confirmed. He issues one final directive to his generals: hold nothing back. Prepare to move at the first sign of attack. Eisenhower, still in Luxembourg, receives the same intelligence. He leans over the maps again, the weight of the decision pressing like lead. Delay risks disaster. Action risks catastrophe. Yet, in the cold clarity of the Ardennes, Patton's Third Army is already poised, a predator waiting for the storm to break. The tension is palpable. Outside, the snow falls silently, masking the march of the German divisions gathering just beyond the tree line. And Patton knows what Eisenhower has yet to accept. When the storm hits, hesitation will be deadly. December 15, 1944. Deep in the Ardennes, the forest is eerily silent. Snow drifts lie heavy across the roads, broken only by the distant rumble of German armored columns preparing for their assault. You can almost hear the crunch of ice beneath the boots of scouts, the whistle of frozen wind through the pines, the tense silence before a symphony of chaos. Patton stands on a ridge overlooking a valley where his tanks are positioned. The men around him chatter in low tones, voices tight with anticipation, yet there's a sense of calm under his command, the calm of a predator who knows exactly where the prey will appear. Every Sherman tank, every artillery gun, every scout plane is accounted for, positioned to strike the enemy before they can gain momentum. Orders fly over radio waves, armored divisions ready to advance, engineers preparing bridges for rapid crossing, infantry units rehearsing rapid deployment maneuvers. Even the weather is a challenge, ice and snow threatening to slow movement, but Patton refuses to let it dictate his timing. His mind calculates routes, distances, fuel consumption, and likely German responses as if he were moving pieces on a chessboard. Meanwhile in Brussels, Eisenhower monitors reports with a creeping sense of urgency. The data confirms what Patton has been saying for weeks: the Ardennes is about to erupt into full-scale attack. His generals urge caution, warning that committing the Third Army too early could overextend supply lines. Eisenhower hesitates, and as he hesitates, Patton's forces remain poised, ready to turn the tables the moment the Germans make their first move. Then, just before dawn on December 16, scouts report flashes along the tree line. Tanks, infantry, artillery columns, the Germans have begun their offensive. The Ardennes comes alive with smoke, explosions, and the thunder of advancing armor. In that instant, Patton's foresight crystallizes into action. His army, already in motion, meets the German assault not with panic but with precision. Every second counts, every maneuver must be flawless. And as the snow swirls around the advancing columns, Patton rides along his lines, issuing crisp commands, eyes sharp, mind sharper. The Third Army is no longer waiting for permission. They are a force unleashed, moving faster and more decisively than the Germans ever imagined possible. Somewhere in the chaos, German commanders are stunned. Their meticulously planned blitzkrieg, calculated to exploit Allied hesitation, is met with preemptive strength. Patton's preparation has turned what should have been a German advantage into a deadly trap. But even as the Third Army strikes, a new question arises. Can they maintain this momentum through the treacherous winter terrain and against an enemy still fighting desperately to recover? December 16, 1944. Mid-morning. The Ardennes is a frozen hellscape of smoke, fire, and steel. German tanks churn through snow-packed roads, infantry push forward through icy gullies, and artillery shells tear apart the forest in deafening roars. You can almost feel the ground trembling under the relentless barrage. Patton's Third Army moves like a single organism. Sherman tanks roll along forest roads, their engines muffled against the winter cold. Artillery units unleash coordinated fire, pounding enemy positions with terrifying accuracy. Infantry advances in synchronized waves, exploiting every ridge, every hollow, every blind spot. Soldiers shout orders through the wind and gunfire, their faces streaked with grime and snow, eyes locked on the enemy. Patton rides alongside the advance in his jeep, his presence a magnetic force of command. "Keep moving," he shouts, pointing toward the German flank. His voice cuts through the chaos, giving clarity amid the storm. Communications teams relay his directives with lightning speed, ensuring that every division, every battalion, every platoon acts in concert. The Germans are taken completely off guard. They expected hesitation. They expected disarray. Instead, they face an American army already in position, striking with the full force of winter-hardened tanks and artillery. Reports reach German commanders that Patton's units are advancing faster than intelligence predicted. Their shock is palpable, their confidence faltering under the weight of a preemptive strike. From the front lines, soldiers witness the audacity of the maneuver. Engineers bridge frozen rivers in record time. Tank crews maneuver around obstacles that would have stalled any other army. Every action reinforces Patton's singular vision. Preparation and decisiveness are the ultimate weapons. By nightfall, the first major German push has been blunted. Patton's foresight has allowed the Third Army to seize critical road junctions, disrupt supply lines, and force the enemy into defensive positions they hadn't intended to hold. Across the Ardennes, whispers begin. The Americans are moving too fast, striking too decisively, and the generals who mocked Patton's warnings now realize the true genius of his planning. But the battle is far from over. While the Third Army has gained the upper hand, winter's harsh grip and the enemy's desperate counterattacks threaten to stall momentum. And in the darkness, a chilling realization settles in: the Germans will not simply retreat, they will fight to the last. December 17, 1944. Dawn breaks over the Ardennes, a gray light reflecting off snow and shattered trees. Smoke still curls from artillery strikes overnight, mingling with the bitter chill that bites through uniforms and skin alike. You can almost hear the groan of frozen metal, the rattle of tank treads, and the low murmur of exhausted soldiers bracing for another day of combat. Patton surveys the front from a small ridge, binoculars in hand. He spots German formations trying to regroup, struggling through snow and mud. He doesn't hesitate. "We hit them now," he commands. Orders ripple through the Third Army like lightning. Tanks advance, artillery zeroes in, infantry sweeps the flanks. Every move calculated, every strike coordinated. The Germans are caught in a vice they never anticipated. For the first time, the scale of Patton's foresight becomes terrifyingly clear. The Ardennes offensive, meant to split the Allied forces and seize vital territory, is now collapsing under the weight of preemptive American action. German officers scrawl frantic notes, trying to redirect their forces, but the momentum Patton has generated cannot be stopped. Behind the lines, soldiers feel the surge of hope. Morale skyrockets as units who had been preparing for a defensive struggle find themselves suddenly on the offensive. They push through the snow, firing, shouting, advancing. You can almost feel the exhilaration mixed with exhaustion, a combination only those in the heart of decisive battle can know. Eisenhower, observing the situation from Brussels, receives reports of Patton's lightning advance. There is a mix of relief and awe. The hesitation that could have cost thousands of lives has been mitigated by one man's vision and relentless action. Allies and enemies alike begin to understand that the Third Army is no ordinary force. But Patton knows the battle is not yet won. German counterattacks are coming, and winter itself is as much an enemy as any soldier. Supplies must hold, communications must remain flawless, and every decision must be precise. One wrong move, one delay, and the tide could shift again. Somewhere deep in the Ardennes, a German commander writes in disbelief: "The Americans moved faster than reason allowed. The battle that was supposed to surprise them has instead become a trap they cannot escape." December 18, 1944. Midday. The Ardennes is a whirlwind of smoke, ice, and the relentless sound of battle. The Third Army presses forward, tanks rolling over frozen gullies, artillery shells exploding with thunderous impact, and infantry securing every ridge and crossroads. You can almost feel the vibration through the earth as Patton's forces seize the initiative completely. Patton rides at the front in his jeep, a leather glove gripping the wheel. Eye-sharp mind calculating every move. Radio operators relay his orders across the battlefield with clockwork precision. Sherman tanks pivot to intercept German advances, engineers repair demolished bridges within hours, and supply trucks navigate icy roads to keep the army fueled and armed. The Third Army is a living machine, every part functioning in perfect sync under Patton's command. The Germans, stunned by the audacity and speed of the American response, struggle to adapt. They had counted on shock and disarray to pave their way through the Ardennes, but instead they face an enemy already in place, striking with coordination and purpose. Reports from German officers describe disbelief, frustration, and fear as their columns are cut off, their flanks exposed, and their supply lines destroyed. Across the battlefield, soldiers witness moments of cinematic clarity: a tank crew blasting through a forest clearing to intercept armored units, infantrymen scaling icy slopes to seize strategic positions, artillery pounding enemy bunkers with precision. Every success reinforces Patton's vision. Foresight, preparation, and decisive action can turn the tide even against overwhelming odds. Back at headquarters, Eisenhower watches the unfolding events with a mix of awe and relief. The hesitation that could have stalled the Allies has been overcome by Patton's initiative. Allies begin to recognize what many had long suspected. Patton is not merely a general, he is a force multiplier, capable of seeing opportunities and exploiting them with relentless precision. But even as victory seems within reach, Patton knows the Ardennes is unforgiving. Winter weather, exhausted troops, and desperate enemy counterattacks remain constant threats. One misstep, one failure to maintain momentum, and the battle could swing back in the Germans' favor. And in that tension, a chilling thought lingers: the Ardennes winter is far from over, and even the most brilliant plan is only as strong as the discipline and courage of those who execute it. December 22, 1944. The Ardennes. The snow is stained with mud and blood, smoke rising from shattered villages and burned-out tanks. The German offensive has begun to falter. You can almost hear the sigh of relief from weary soldiers who have endured relentless attacks, yet now push forward with renewed energy. Patton rides through the lines, surveying the battlefield. The Third Army has regained key roadways, disrupted enemy supply chains, and forced the Germans into retreat. His face is set, eyes scanning every ridge, but there is a faint glimmer of satisfaction, not in glory but in survival, in foresight turned into decisive action. Every obstacle he anticipated, every hesitation he feared, has been met with preparation, coordination, and courage. Behind the scenes, Eisenhower receives the reports. There is no longer hesitation. There is awe. The very commanders who had debated and delayed are now witnessing the tangible results of Patton's relentless vision. Allies across the front understand that the Ardennes would have been far bloodier and more chaotic without his preemptive positioning of the Third Army. Even the Germans recorded in their dispatches. The Americans struck faster than anticipated, moved with precision, and countered an offensive designed to split the Allied front. Patton's foresight had transformed a potential catastrophe into a decisive turning point. His soldiers, exhausted yet alive, recognize they have been part of something extraordinary, a battle won before it was even fully engaged, through planning, courage, and audacity. But the Ardennes is a harsh teacher. Snow and ice remain, supplies are strained, and pockets of resistance continue to threaten. Patton knows that vigilance must never waver. The war is far from over. Yet in this moment the lesson is undeniable: anticipation, preparation, and decisiveness can alter the course of history itself. And somewhere in the corridors of SHAEF, Eisenhower finally acknowledges it. Patton saw what others could not. He acted when others hesitated. The Battle of the Bulge would be remembered not only for its ferocity but for the extraordinary foresight that prevented disaster. December 31, 1944. Headquarters, Third Army. The winter sky is pale, the battle-scarred Ardennes stretching endlessly beneath it. Smoke still drifts from abandoned German positions, but the chaos has begun to settle into a tenuous calm. You can almost hear the distant echo of gunfire fading, replaced by the soft murmur of soldiers cleaning weapons, patching uniforms, and tending the wounded. Patton walks among his men, inspecting lines, shaking hands, offering words of encouragement. His presence is magnetic, a living reminder that vision and action can save lives and shape history. Maps on the table, once crowded with pins and markers forecasting disaster, now show controlled advances, secured towns, and disrupted enemy formations. Every mark is a testament to foresight transformed into decisive action. Eisenhower, reviewing final reports from SHAEF, acknowledges what Patton's contemporaries already understand. The Third Army's preparedness, driven by one man's insight, prevented the Ardennes offensive from becoming a catastrophe. Allied losses, though significant, were far less than they might have been. Entire divisions had been positioned to respond rapidly, armor ready, infantry alert, artillery precise, all because Patton refused to wait. In German records, disbelief persists. They had planned to shatter the Allied front to exploit hesitation and disorder. Instead, they encountered a force that moved faster, struck harder, and anticipated every move. Officers record it plainly: they had been outmaneuvered, outthought, and outpaced. Patton's legacy in the Ardennes is not merely in victories or maps redrawn. It is in the principle that anticipation can transform chaos into opportunity. The Third Army had weathered the storm because one general refused to be paralyzed by doubt, because he acted while others debated, and because he trusted both his instincts and his men. As the sun sets over the snow-covered forests, soldiers gather around campfires, sharing stories of the battle. You can almost feel their relief, their awe, and their understanding of what they had just endured. History will remember the Battle of the Bulge for its ferocity, but those who stood in the Ardennes that winter will remember the man who saw the storm coming and met it head-on. End.